Barbara Kazimierczak, who will be presenting first, comes from University of Guardia and Missouri and Austin. Is that okay? And she'll be presenting a paper entitled Socrates, Giner de los Ríos, and Ferrer y Guardia, Education Based on the Right to Freedom. So,
thank you. Is that okay with my voice? Okay. So let's look on a slogan of our session. Education for democracy and human rights. What does education for democracy, education for human rights mean? Considering the matter from political point of view, education seems to be a requirement of democracy. There is no real democracy without efficient educational system. A main thesis of my speech touched upon a role of education in a process of gaining and developing a space of human freedom. Education free from dogma, based on natural need to get in knowledge, is a way to build a real self-aware and free society. Freedom is a state of mind. It is not given at once. It has to be achieved. In the present reality which we live in, one of the most important and useful tools to cherish freedom seems to be education. We live in a plural world with its unbelievable social dynamics. Thus, we are forced to get knowledge, to grasp and rethink everything what we experience day by day. Every human being is determined to acquire knowledge. Philosophers say that we cannot escape from the ontological constraint to epistemic activity. We are forced, in the deepest meaning of this word, to get to know, to learn. Thus, nowadays, all political systems should be obliged to guarantee every person a right to the education and to develop his or her personal freedom. In order to show some historical dimensions, I would like to mention about people who devoted themselves to fight for human freedom and who assume that the education is a crucial tool for that. Greek philosopher Socrates and two Spanish thinkers, Francisco Giner de los Ríos and Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, are significant examples of such a people. They were attempting to create an equal educational system and, moreover, a system that has to be free from any dogma, making people autonomous personalities ready to create a new reality. Socrates is acknowledged as the most significant educator of critical thinking in ancient Greece. But before we focus on him, we have to mention about the sophists in that case. When it comes to teaching people to discipline of thinking, sophists were these who initiated a reflection focused on human being. They accomplished a deep mental revolution. Thanks to them, a human being began to be a point of philosophy. Polish historian of philosophy Jan Legowicz wrote that their indisputable merit was taking heed of human matters and for human education. They prepared a ground for Socrates' intellectualism. Human being seen as a subject of educational activity, human being as an object deciding about his or her life, an individual and his own point of view. This is a heritage of these sophists. We could say there would be no Socrates if there weren't sophists in ancient Greece. When it comes to teaching for freedom, an activity of Socrates should be underlined as crucial one. Socrates was not interested in teaching for money as the sophists were. As far as we know, he was not career-orientated. Moreover, he was ready to teach everyone, not only aristocracy of Athens those times. That philosopher seems to be first who wanted to teach people how to achieve a state of mind free from any dogma, from social influences, and how not to be affected by any exterior pressure. Socrates' tactic to help people to form an ability to creative, flexible, and non-dogmatic thinking was his own method of constructing dialogue. The Socratic method based on an induction was a groundbreaking achievement in a way to mental and personal freedom. The most important testimony of Socrates' life and philosophy are the works by Plato, especially in that case it is well known, the Defense of Socrates. Here we find Socrates' confession about his approach to education. He said, quote, "I never became anyone's teacher, but if someone wants to hear me talking and practicing my own things, whether young or old, I have never objected to anyone, nor do I converse for receiving money, but not receiving it. And to rich and poor alike, I offer my inquiry. And if someone wishes to answer, he may hear what I say. And whether some of these become good or not, I should not rightly bear the blame, since I neither promised anything, nor ever gave anyone any instruction." Socrates' educational activity was inconvenient for the authorities and caused a lot of cursory judgments about him. It is well known fact that the Athenian philosopher was accused of demoralization of the young and sentenced to death. Even being on the brink of death, he didn't change his concepts. He always aspired to tell the truth and to cherish freedom. We can call Socrates the philosophical fighter for mental freedom for sure. Next great example of such a teacher of freedom is Francisco Giner de los Ríos. He was a pupil of a father of Spanish Krausism, Julian Sanz del Rio. Giner's contribution into developing Krause's conception of reason, called a harmonic rationalism, is indisputable. Giner was one of the founders of La Institución Libre de Enseñanza, Free Institution of Teaching. The idea of independence from any political party, secular and modern school, was born after 1817. In 1817, all academic world in Spain had been obliged to take an oath of loyalty to the Spanish crown and the Catholic Church. Giner and other Krausists didn't comply the expectations of authorities. In consequence, Giner paid for that. He was arrested and incarcerated in Cadiz. As it wrote Salvador de Madariaga in his famous work Spain, A Modern History, even Prime Minister Antonio Cánovas de Castillo assured Giner that a government was waiting just for an agreement for a new terms of working, nothing more. Giner didn't go along with the proposal. Moreover, in 1876, with Nicolas Salmeron, Humercindo de Azcarate and others, Giner founded the Free Institution of Teaching. What kind of innovation was introduced in Free Institution? In one of Giner's essays, it is written, quote, "We are taught many things, say often the young, nor thinking neither how to live." Thus, Giner wanted to teach how to live. One of the most important assumptions of all educational system of Giner's school said that thinking is not something different than life. It is integral part of life. The primary purpose of the institution was to learn Spanish youth in the atmosphere of freedom. The ideal of Giner was to produce a group of men with well-rounded liberal education, people of character and tolerance who would be able to lead the nation forward. Teachers in the institution were focused on developing critical thinking, on teaching an attitude to life free from any dependencies, creating intellectual manners and needs so different from the traditional idea of church education. I would like to mention that Krause's pedagogy interested the intellectuals in Poland also. For example, in 1930, Stefania Ciesielska-Borkowska, a significant Romanist, was a visitor in the institution and at public schools in Spain at the same time. Her comparative research was published in 1931. In her opinion, education based on Giner's pedagogy was incredibly efficient and interesting. And the third person whose significant role has to be highlighted is Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, Catalan freethinker well known as a founder of Escuela Moderna. Ferrer was an activist against illiteracy in Catalonia. His basic thesis said that man is a free creator, essentially. A main goal of the modern school was described by Ferrer with these words, quote, The modern school's mission is to make children educated, truthful, fair, and free from prejudice. To do this, the dogmatic study will be replaced by the rational study of natural science." Unquote. Ferrer wanted to educate children in the atmosphere of mental freedom, was trying to form people with abilities to critical and creative thinking. His goals were almost the same as Socrates and Hinner's, and unfortunately his problems were the same too. In 1909, Ferrer had been accused of an activity against the state. He was shot to death by a fire squad during so-called Blood Week of Barcelona. The execution triggered strong reactions of freethinkers on the whole Europe. For example, in Poland, several thinkers were involved in the popularization of Ferrer's work and the truth about his death. For example, in 1911, Polish Ethical Fellowship published a book, Francisco Ferrer, Life and Work, translated from French to Polish. Moreover, there was published a booklet, Ferrer's Trial, the Official Files, in 1910. Also, Kazimierz Mierzyński published in 1924 a book, Francisco Ferrer, the Martyr of Free Thinking, the founder of Escuela Moderna. In 1911, Kazimiera Bujwidowa wrote about Ferrer, quote, "People like Ferrer are like a public product and public property. What did Ferrer? Short answer. He wanted to emboss statue of a man. Ferrer believed in the man and loved him with all his soul." As we could see, there are many similarities between Socrates, Hinner, and Ferrer. As thinkers, they assumed that human being is rational one and that reason is leading cognitive force. As social activists, they dedicated their life to the matter of education. All of them were prisoners, consequently, their educational activity. They were ready even to die in order to defend the ideas which they follow in life. They proved that. Socrates in 300 BC chose a poison. Hinner, before founding institution, was a prisoner of Cadiz for some time. Ferrer, sentenced to death in 1909, was set against escaping from a prison. To sum up, Socrates, Hinner, and Ferrer were brave thinkers whose activity should be acknowledged as a great contribution in the process of building a new type of human being. Their goal was to create responsible citizens, well-educated intellectuals, rational thinking human beings, and at least a form of self-aware society. Education was seen by them as a crucial way thanks to which it is possible to achieve freedom. They treated education as one of the most fundamental human rights. Without any doubts, their philosophical concepts and social activity were a milestone in education for freedom, for democracy and human rights. Thank you.